In the vast and mysterious world of Dune, the Fremen are an enigmatic and mysterious group of people that fled persecution and enslavement by the Empire and settled on Arrakis over 10,000 years ago. As the indigenous inhabitants of the desert planet Arrakis, they possess invaluable knowledge and technology that makes them essential to the survival of the story's main characters. The Fremen are a reflection of the real indigenous and religious groups throughout human history who have faced persecution and displacement. Their religion and mysticism, which evolved over thousands of years, are a fascinating manifestation of how rituals and practices can evolve over time. As the stewards of Arrakis in the latest adaptation of Dune movies, the Atreides seek an alliance with the Fremen, leading to a crucial partnership that shapes the story's events. Join us today as we explore the world of Dune and unravel the secrets of the mysterious Fremen. But be warned, the journey will be steeped in mysticism, just like Arrakis itself. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Exploring the origins and backstory of the Fremen. The harsh, unforgiving terrain of Arrakis molded the Fremen into a unique and mysterious group of desert dwellers. The classic novel depicts a rich culture and way of life that has been shaped by their environment, rich history, and beliefs, and of course, the Fremen culture. They have a rich oral tradition that has been passed down from one generation to the next, and their culture is deeply rooted in their history, which dates back to their migration from the planet Poratrin, an idyllic agricultural world blessed with an optimal climate and plentiful water sources flourished in the Epsilon Alingu star system. The Fremen possessed a deep connection to their history, which regrettably had become distorted and lost over time. They regarded their ancestral home as Poratrin, and their migration to Arrakis as the conclusion of a lengthy odyssey. Before the time of the Guild, an ancient civilization thrived on Poratrin, where the Isfahani New area predominantly spoke Farsi, an archaic Terran language. House Maros bestowed the planet on Emperor Elrud V, who ordered Siradar Baron Charles Mikarol of Old Terra to provide 2 million inhabitants. The intransigent Zensuni of Poratrin were gathered by Mikarol, and their journey began. The Fremen lived a divergent lifestyle on Poratrin compared to their nomadic way of life on Arrakis. They maintained a fixed population that dwelled in established settlements, some comparable in size to small Imperium cities, with a populace of 10 million. Their effortless existence significantly impacted their societal structure, resulting in them relinquishing their resolute determination for independence from Terra. In 4492 AG, the Landsraad leaders of the First Republic designated Poratrin as a promising new homeworld for House Alexan. Paluzan, their native planet, had been rendered uninhabitable due to illicit atomic experiments. Consequently, 5 legions, or approximately 150,000 people, were deployed to settle on Poratrin, thus metamorphosing it into a prominent resource center for the Imperium. Despite their long journey and the changes they underwent on Arrakis, the Fremen never forgot their origins on Poratrin. Their oral tradition and songs kept the memory of their ancestral planet alive, and their sense of history remained a fundamental part of their culture. When House Atreides came to Arrakis to replace House Harkonnen in 10,191 AG, they initially found the Fremen to be distrustful due to the harsh rule of the Harkonnens and the imperial dealings. They were initially hesitant to trust Duke Leto Atreides I and War Master Duncan Idaho, but through Leto's fair and equitable policies and Idaho's impressive diplomatic abilities, the two gradually built a bond with the Fremen. In the aftermath of the Harkonnen and Corrino invasion, the Fremen found themselves in a precarious position on Arrakis. However, their fortunes changed when they adopted Duke Leto's son, Paul Atreides, as their prophetic savior, or Mahdi. The Fremen were fierce fighters, honed by years of survival in the hostile desert environment and attrition wars against the Harkonnens. They were drawn to Paul Atreides' leadership and rallied around him as their savior, believing that he could lead them to victory against the Imperial forces. Their guerrilla warfare tactics proved to be superior even to the elite Corrino Sardaukar troops, and in just 12 years, they succeeded in overthrowing the Imperium and becoming the foot soldiers of the Atreides Empire. During his time with the Fremen, Paul met and fell in love with Chani, and her fighting skills grew under the tutelage of Naib Stilgar, Stilgar, and she became a key part of the Fremen's resistance against the Imperial forces. Despite initially meeting under tense circumstances, Chani and Paul's love deepened over time, leading to the birth of their son, Leto. Tragically, their firstborn child was murdered while they were away from their siege. After defeating the Harkonnens and Corrinos, Paul ascended to the throne as emperor, and married Princess Irulan Corrino. However, his love for Chani remained unwavering, and despite the political complexities of their relationship, they remained devoted to each other. As the terraforming of Arrakis began, the Fremen's cultural identity began to erode. By the time of the God Emperor's reign, they had become little more than museum pieces, with their ancient traditions diluted into more honorary forms. During the era of the Honored Matres, the Fremen's identity had been largely lost, except for a few individuals who still held on to some of their old attitudes and customs. Despite this loss, the Fremen remained legendary warriors, skilled in using the environment of Arrakis to fend off superior technology and trained opponents. Their fight for survival had dominated their cultural identity, and even as their traditional ways were lost, they remained a symbol of determination and resilience. How are the Fremen born? The tribe considers the birth of a new Fremen and the bond between the child and its parents through the most important aspect of their life, which is water. To cement this connection, the amniotic fluid is carefully saved, distilled, and then the godmother feeds it to the infant. Though each child is raised in their own household, the entire community shares a responsibility for their welfare, with a greater obligation falling upon those closer to the child's parents. The Fremen understand that children who are weak and dependent can place an entire tribe at risk, requiring time and attention that their parents cannot spare, while contributing nothing in return. Thus, independence is encouraged from an early age to prevent the child from becoming a burden. The first lessons instilled in a Fremen are that wasting water in any form is a grave sin, and crying is not allowed, since it is seen as wasting moisture. To maintain the water principle, every member of the tribe educates the Fremen until maturity. They are also taught that cowardice and weakness have no place in their society, and those who embody such traits will not be allowed to mess up the gene pool.
I give.
What are the cultures and customs followed by the Fremen? The Fremen are deeply spiritual and superstitious people, and over the centuries, they adapted their blend of Zen-Suning faith to their desert environment. They worship the giant sandworms as manifestations of the earth deity they call Shai Hulud, and despite the danger that the sandworms present, the Fremen have learned to ride them in a ritualized, controlled manner by calling and mounting them. To avoid attracting the deadly creatures, they cross the desert on foot in a non-rhythmic pattern. They were seen as a physical manifestation of God as part of the sandworm life cycle. They were also known to consume a diet rich in melange, the spice drug that is everywhere on Arrakis. Exposure to the spice turns the sclera, cornea, and iris of the user a dark shade of blue, known as blue in blue or the eyes of Ibad. With no natural sources of water in the desert, conservation was a crucial aspect of Fremen life. They built their society around the collection, storage, and conservative use of all moisture. Water is collected from the atmosphere in wind traps and added to underground water stores in each siege. Personal ownership of moisture is designated by water rings, used as a form of currency. The Fremen wear still suits, especially designed body-enclosing suits that collect and recycle all the moisture released by the body. The water is held in catch pockets and made available to drink through a tube. A Fremen in a well-maintained suit can survive for weeks in the desert without any other water source. They have adapted to their environment physiologically in such a way that their blood clots almost instantly to prevent water loss. Combat was an essential part of Fremen life, with the hazardous conditions of Arrakis molding them into superior hand-to-hand combatants. They use knives and other similar weapons as personal body shields, and have made projectile weapons semi-obsolete. Only slow-moving weapons can penetrate a shield. The Fremen avoid using shields as they attract the native giant sandworms and drive them into a killing frenzy. Their justice system relies heavily on trial by combat, and people can challenge each other to duels over etiquette, law, or honor. The victor in such a duel becomes responsible for the defeated's wife, children, and certain possessions. The Fremen had a Sayadina, a wise woman trained in the spiritual traditions of her people who served as their spiritual leader. She was the Fremen version of a Bene Gesserit Reverend Mother. Additionally, the Bene Gesserit Missionaria Protectiva had created a Messiah legend among the Fremen population, which Paul Atreides later utilized to secure his and his mother's safety. Fremen are addicted to the spice melange. The Fremen's survival on Arrakis was intricately tied to the existence of sandworms, which they held in high regard. Along with their veneration of the creatures, they also relied on them for their diet. Their primary source of sustenance was the spice melange, which was a result of a complex process. Sand trout's fungal excretions combined with water to form a pre-spice mass, which would then be explosively released to the surface of the desert. The melange would be formed under the extreme heat and air of the planet. When sandworms perished, sand trout would be released into the sand, beginning the cycle of creation once again. The creation and consumption of the spice melange were a vital part of the Fremen's existence on Arrakis. The sandworms themselves were also an integral part of the process. They ate sand plankton to survive, and some of these plankton burrowed deep in the sand to become little makers. They could sense the slightest hint of moisture in the soil and would work to interlock, forming small living cisterns. However, this moisture was also a crucial component in the production of melange, the valuable spice coveted throughout the galaxy. Extracting the melange was a hazardous and challenging task that could only be accomplished by a specialized vehicle known as the harvester. The harvester had to navigate around the treacherous sands while avoiding the massive sandworms that lurked beneath the surface, and the slightest error could result in deadly explosions of melange. For the Fremen, the spice melange was not only a source of sustenance, but it was also a central part of their culture. They consumed it regularly and used it in their food, making them essentially dependent on the substance. Over time, the spice melange had become intertwined with their belief system and way of life, making it more than just a substance to them. It was a symbol of their resilience and adaptability, a reminder that they could survive in even the harshest of environments. The power of the spice melange was legendary. It was said to be capable of prolonging life, boosting vitality, and enhancing awareness, but its true potential went far beyond these basic benefits. For those with the right genetics, consuming the spice could unlock a rare ability known as prescience, allowing them to see glimpses of the future. This was a coveted skill that the Spacing Guild had mastered, relying on mutated humans with limited prescience to safely navigate their Highliner starships through the dangers of folded space. However, the spice's psychotropic effects were just as potent, including altered states of consciousness that could reveal genetic memories and heighten other abilities. The Bene Gesserit and Fremen peoples both used the spice to induce these trances, recognizing its potential as a powerful entheogen. The Fremen, in particular, had become experts in the use of the spice, utilizing it in a variety of applications. They were able to create textiles such as spice cloth and spice fiber rugs, as well as producing plastic, paper, and even chemical explosives. They even incorporated the spice into their cuisine, creating unique beverages like spice coffee, spice beer, and spice liquor. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of the spice was its ability to transform those who consumed it. It was said that the spice could unlock latent abilities within the human mind, allowing them to see beyond the limits of time and space and gain profound insights into the very fabric of the universe itself.
Charge to the newcomers. See that they are safe on the journey. Let's go.
I will not have them.
How are the Fremen so important for Paul Atreides' journey? Paul Atreides arrives on their planet as a stranger, but quickly becomes the leader and savior of the Fremen. By saving the life of a Fremen housekeeper, Shadow Mapes, from a deadly hunter-seeker, Paul earns the respect of the Fremen, who view him as a powerful and mysterious figure. This sets off a chain of events that leads to Paul's rise as a leader among the Fremen. The Fremen are people who value strength, honor, and survival above all else. They live in a harsh, water-scarce environment, and have developed a complex system of rituals and customs that help them survive. We know that water conservation is central to their way of life, and Paul quickly learns the importance of this when he is faced with the responsibility of taking care of Jameis's wife and children after killing Jameis in a ritual fight to the death. Paul also earns the respect of the Fremen through his mastery of the Bene Gesserit weirding way fighting discipline, which he teaches to the Fremen. They now saw him as their savior, the one who could lead them to paradise, and they called him the Lisan al-Gaib, or the voice from the outer world. Upon arriving in Siege Tabor, Paul and his mother Jessica quickly form an alliance with the Fremen. They shared their knowledge of weapons and martial arts, which made the Fremen an even more formidable force. Paul became so respected and beloved by them that they gave him this secret siege name, Usul, which means the base of the pillar. As he was accepted into the tribe, Paul took the name Paul Muad'Dib after the Mouse of Arrakis, which was considered a great honor, something the Fremen really appreciated. Under Paul's leadership, the Fremen began a resistance campaign against the Harkonnen rule. They fought fiercely and rode giant sandworms into battle, with Paul leading the way. Paul married Cheney, the daughter of Liet Kynes, and through her, he gained a deep understanding of Fremen culture and customs. Ultimately, Paul leads the Fremen to take back their planet from the oppressive rule of the Harkonnens and the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. He becomes a symbol of hope and liberation for the Fremen, and his legacy lives on even after his death. A religion arises around him, and a jihad is fought in his name across the universe. While some Fremen become disillusioned with the changes Paul's regime brings to their culture, he remains a powerful and influential figure in their history. Conclusion. As we eagerly await the release of the next Dune movie, we cannot forget the pivotal role played by the Fremen in the story. They were the ultimate survivors of Arrakis, having lived on the planet for centuries and learned to thrive in its dangerous desert conditions. The Fremen have always dreamed of ridding their planet of those who would exploit them, such as the despotic Harkonnens, especially the Dr. Liet Kynes, who secretly leads the Fremen in their fight against the Harkonnens while coordinating them to bring about massive ecological change on Dune. The Fremen's devout Zen Sunni roots have led them to translate their skills into tradition, but their increased susceptibility to religious manipulation is both their biggest weakness and greatest unifying strength. Nevertheless, they remain an integral part of the extensive world of the Dune universe. That's all for this video, but if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, be safe out there, and have a marvelous day.